Have you ever felt like it's too late to start over? Like the mistakes you've made have sealed your fate? Today, I want to share a story that will challenge that belief. A story about a man named Bob who found his way back from the brink at 60 years old. Bob's journey of rebuilding wasn't about chasing wealth or some grand, elaborate dream. It was simpler and much more profound. It was about one thing: avoiding a life filled with regret. At 60, an age when many are looking towards retirement, Bob found himself starting from scratch. He had lost everything that mattered: his family, his home, a stable life he had worked decades to build. So, how did it all fall apart? It started subtly with stress. The kind of everyday pressure that builds up over time, silently chipping away at you. Bob didn't have healthy ways to cope. Instead, he turned to other things to escape the pressure. A drink here, a small bet there. It seemed harmless at first, a way to unwind. Alcohol and gambling took hold, and his life began to spiral out of control. His addiction wasn't a loud, dramatic explosion. It was a slow, creeping tide that eroded his relationships, his finances, and his self-respect. He made promises he couldn't keep, broke the trust of those he loved most, and pushed his family away. The man his wife and children once knew disappeared, replaced by someone they no longer recognized, someone driven by addiction. Eventually, they had to leave for their own well-being. Bob was left alone, with nothing but the consequences of his choices. He hit rock bottom, and in that desolate, lonely place, something finally shifted. For the first time, Bob stopped blaming the world, his job, or his bad luck. He looked in the mirror and took full, unflinching responsibility for his actions. He acknowledged the pain he had caused, the life he had dismantled. And that moment of brutal honesty, as painful as it was, became the cornerstone of his new beginning. So, what do you do when you're 60, alone, and trying to stay sober? You have to fill the hours. The idle time that was once consumed by addiction is now a dangerous void. Bob needed to keep his hands and mind busy. He needed a new routine, a new focus. He reached back into his past, to a simple, happy memory from his childhood, baking with his grandmother. He remembered the smell of fresh bread, the warmth of the kitchen, the simple joy of creating something with his own hands. He started baking again. At first, it was just a loaf of bread, then another, then cookies, cakes, and pastries. The process was therapeutic. It required precision, patience, and focus qualities he had lost along the way. Kneading the dough became a way to work through his anxiety. Watching it rise was a small symbol of hope. Baking wasn't just a hobby, it was his lifeline. It kept him sober, it kept him honest, and it gave him something positive to pour his energy into each day. Bob wasn't trying to start a business. He was just trying to survive the day. He started sharing his baked goods with neighbors, with people at his support group, with anyone who would take them. He just wanted to share the little bit of joy he had rediscovered. People loved what he made. They loved the taste, but they also loved the story behind it. They saw his dedication, his quiet passion. Word began to spread. Soon, people weren't just accepting his gifts. They were asking to buy them. The demand grew organically and unexpectedly. He rented a small, forgotten storefront and opened a tiny bakery. It wasn't fancy, but it was his. The busy Bob's Bakery sign hung proudly over the door. This little shop became more than just a business. It became his purpose. Every morning, he was up before dawn, mixing dough, firing up the ovens. The bakery gave him a reason to get out of bed, a community to connect with, and a tangible way to contribute something good to the world. But they stayed for the conversation, for the warm, welcoming atmosphere Bob had created. He was no longer just an addict in recovery. He was Bob, the baker, who made the best sourdough in town. He was building a new identity, one he could be proud of. Looking back, Bob began to see his past differently. He realized he couldn't change what he had done, but he could change what it meant. His mistakes, as painful as they were, had taught him invaluable lessons. They taught him humility in a way that success never could. They taught him compassion for others who were struggling. He learned that true strength isn't about never falling. It's about getting back up, no matter how many times you've been knocked down. He became grateful for his rock bottom, because it was the solid ground upon which he finally started to build a real, authentic life. He found a sense of peace he had never known before, a peace that doesn't come from a perfect life, but from accepting an imperfect one. Now, what about his family? Reconciliation isn't a single event. It's a slow, delicate process. Bob didn't make grand apologies or demand forgiveness. He knew that words were cheap. He had used them to make empty promises for years. This time, he let his actions speak. He focused on his recovery, on his bakery, on being a better man, day in and day out. He stayed consistent. His ex-wife and children saw the change from a distance. They saw him sober. They saw him working hard. They saw him finding purpose. They saw a quiet, steady repentance, not a desperate plea for forgiveness. Slowly, cautiously, they began to let him back in. A short phone call, a brief visit to the bakery, a shared cup of coffee. Each interaction was a small step, rebuilding trust one brick at a time. The anger and hurt began to soften, replaced by a tentative hope. He wasn't the man who had hurt them anymore. He was a new version of the husband and father they once loved, a version forged in failure and redeemed by effort. The reconciliation wasn't about erasing the past, but about building a new future alongside it. Bob's story is a powerful reminder for all of us. It tells us that it is never, ever too late to change your life. Your age is just a number. Your past mistakes do not have to define your future. True healing and transformation don't begin with grand gestures, but with the quiet, courageous decision to take responsibility. It's about finding something that keeps you grounded and then showing up for it and for yourself every single day. If you're struggling, please know that your story isn't over yet. There are resources and people who can help. You can reach out to organizations like the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration or Gamblers Anonymous. Your journey back might not be easy, but as Bob showed us, it is always possible. Thank you so much for watching and for letting me share this incredible story with you. If it resonated with you, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more stories of hope and transformation. We'll see you in the next one.